industry. We're going to use some more changes and more events and more innovations throughout the year. So we've got some really good things set up for you guys. So today we're going to hear from a couple of groups. Our first group is the current state of real estate here in Los Angeles, and you're going to be hearing from about our market here in the industry from Appleton-Young. She's the Senior Executive Vice President. We're going to give her a lot of titles. We're going to make her really good. With and Chief Economist, which is the most important thing. If you guys don't know who Leslie is, I'd be shocked because she definitely has been telling us what's going on in our market for a long time. But she's with the California Association of Realtors. And then we're also going to be hearing from Sandra Miller. She's on the board of directors. She's the chair of our grievance committee. She's also the broker, owner, and top producer with Engle and Volker in Santa Monica. So that'll be our first two speakers. And then we're going to have a little global luxury discussion, East meets West, between our own Ann Miller, Ann Russell, sorry. I guess if I read this, I would, and also Scott Stewart, who's coming to us from Manhattan. He's a top producer at the Corcoan Group in New York. So we're really fortunate to have those. Ann's obviously with Coldwell Bankruptcy. She's the manager at that office. So once we're done with that, we're also gonna have like a little networking reception out in the little foyer here. So when you guys are walking through from the front, we're gonna have a little networking reception. So we encourage you guys to stick around. We're gonna have some international delights, they say, right after the program. So before we get started, I just want to thank all of our sponsors. Our premier sponsor, Vesta Plus from Claw MLS. Thank you. All their great sponsors are always very supportive of all of our events here at the association. Our silver sponsors are Allstate Insurance, Civic Financial Services, Citizens Bank, the Heritage Escrow, Lorraine Inspection Associates, Old Republic Home Protection, PNC Mortgage, Reverse Mortgage Educators, the Termite Guy, Visual Open House. So please give them all a round of applause. So before we get started, the last piece of housekeeping I have for you guys is you guys all got those little cards to visit our sponsors, our affiliates that were out there. So you've got probably about another 15 minutes. If you just have one or two more, you want to pop out of your seat, you guys can probably do that real quick. So we encourage you to stick around for the program. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm round of applause to Leslie Appleton-Young and Sandra.
Hello. We have to stop meeting like this. It's great to be here. I'm going to go through some data metrics, and then Sandra, my dear friend, is going to get up and tell you what it all means. Right, Sandra? What's happening on the ground. So we're going to do market stats, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we have on the policy side. As you probably know, we have a gig of blue majority in Sacramento, which is really changing the playing field for us a little bit. We've got some challenges with rent control. We have split roll on the ballot coming up, and we have a plethora of bills dealing with the affordable housing crisis. So I meant to add a slide that says don't waste a crisis. So I'll just say that right now. Let's not waste a crisis and see what we can get done to address housing affordability in California. So let me just start with why it's so important to kind of think ahead in terms of what's happening in the market. You know, nobody knows what's gonna happen, and 12 months from now, we're gonna look back and say, what did we miss? You know, we didn't see this and that. We know things are gonna change, but we don't wanna be surprised that we're surprised, right? We wanna think about some of the likely or even a few of the unlikely scenarios so we are prepared. So we'll be kind of talking about that as I go along. So the macro outlook is pretty positive, right? The economy has been plugging along, but the thing you need to know is that it's decelerating. It's slowing down. And, you know, we had a kind of a big sugar boost from the tax bill, and that has worn itself out. So the fourth quarter first estimate was 2.6%. For the year as a whole, we'll be a little bit above that, and for 2019, I think the projection right now is about 2.4%. I mean, there's a kind of moving moving targets, but definitely a deceleration, and we're also seeing slower growth in China, we're seeing slower growth in Europe, and that's one of the reasons why the Fed has luckily backed off in terms of its commitment to having a minimum of 2, and we thought, boy, back in November when rates hit 5%, maybe we'd see like 4 increases. They pulled back. We're not gonna see any more of those. Consumers are the engine of growth. 70% of economic activity is tied to consumers, so they're still in a pretty good spot. We have a very tight labor market with very low unemployment. There's a big mismatch between what people are trained to do and what people are hiring for. So I think the #1 major in college is still psychology. So my advice from all my years of experience is don't bother, you will never figure people out. So you might as well learn to code, right? So they're starting to learn to code about it. That's good. And CPI has been very well behaved. I just want to show you, I just have one of these slides showing you the drop in growth from the second quarter of 2018 when we were at 4.1%. And as I said, decelerating with a projection for this year of 2.4% GDP growth. Consumers have been a little bit wiggy, if you will. There's a lot of uncertainty from month to month, and we had a pretty significant drop in consumer confidence in March. And part of that was kind of the shadow of the government shutdown, and part of that was a little bit of an outlier in terms of the jobs numbers being really below what expectations were. And my guess is that'll bounce back when we see the data for April. Here's a look at what's been happening with monetary policy. You can see the yellow line there is the Fed funds rate, and the Fed started to put on the brakes in December of 2015. And since then, we've had 9 increases in the funds rate. And as I mentioned, we had mortgage rates tipping above 5% the first week in November, and now we're down to close to 4%. And again, that's how quickly things change. You know, we were anticipating a higher rate environment in 2019, and we're not gonna get it. And that's one of the things to talk to your clients about. This is a window that we weren't expecting, right, in terms of rates. So don't waste a window. That's my other advice. Here's the big drop. The axes are expanded here, but that's been pretty incredible. And what I wanted to show here is that we have a pretty strong response to new purchase applications when rates go down, as you can see there, and we haven't seen much of an uptick yet because there's about a 6 to 8 week lag before the loans actually close. So I think we're going to see a better spring season than we thought we were. There's a bit of a bounce back. I don't have the slide. However, Oscar 2 days ago sent me our pending sales index, and the latest number looks like a hockey stick in terms of pending, so that was encouraging. Now, 1 month of data does not make a trend, right? And the data in particularly December, January is really pretty useless because the seasonal adjustment factors are so big and unpredictable. However, I think there's enough of an indication for me to say things are looking better than they looked in December, right, when we went into 2019. So I'm calling it from great to good. I'm going to stop now talking about the economy, and I'm going to switch to talking about the housing market. And usually after I speak, at least 1 or 2 people come up and say, but you didn't talk about X. So I wanted to show you all the things I'm not going to talk about and make a point that there are all kinds of exogenous factors that could surprise us this year, and certainly with what's going on in Washington, you never know from one day to the next. We are already in a trade war with various countries. It's just how much worse or big or better or is it going to be? So there's a lot of uncertainties there. With respect to California, and this is particularly for the Bay Area market, but a little bit down here, these huge IPOs that are coming down the pike are likely to have an impact on the real estate market because they are interested in in buying. And I know up north, there's been all these seminars with these guys, and hopefully a few gals, saying, here's what you can do with your restricted stock units and capital gains and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I wanted to say just a few things about our industry and who your competition is. The blue line here, the teal line, are closed escrows in California, and the red is membership in the California Association of Realtors. And what we've had the last 8 or 9 years is really a break in tradition where our membership has continued to grow, even though sales really have not. And in fact, this recovery period that we've seen over the last 10 years has been, to me, extremely disappointing. And most people wouldn't say that because they tend to look at price. But if you look at the number of transactions,
Same in New York.
we are stuck. We have been stuck bouncing along a narrow band around 400 to 425,000 sales this whole period. It's been really shocking. And what that means is that there's more, the competition in our industry is just extremely intense. Here's another way of looking at it. Here you have a 30-year period where you have a huge increase in California's population, you have an increase in realtors, and you have a very small increase in sales, right? So that is another way of looking at this really shrinking pool of business, if you will. And when you do the math in terms of just the number of realtors there are and the number of closed transactions, we've gone from over 10 sides to just a little bit above 4, right? So it's really tough. So I don't know if I brought the slide or not, but I say is your competition is you yesterday and everybody working as hard as you are. So the key here is don't let there ever be anyone working harder than you are, right? Over half of the people, agents in a given MLS, haven't had a listing in 12 months, right? Pareto's law is 80-20. In many areas, 90% of the deals are done by 10% of the realtors. So your competition is not 205,000 realtors in California, which is the membership we had last year. It's in your market area, everybody who is waking up every morning unemployed and making it happen, right? So I think all the data I bring is really important, but it is not a predictor of how you'll do. Because you can do as well as you want to do, right? There's going to always be enough people buying and selling. Just to look at our 10 years of recovery. January 2009, 10 years ago, was the bottom of the market in terms of the number of kind of when we really hit bottom, right? 60% of the transactions at that time were REO, 10% were short sale, and about 30% were traditional equity. And now 99% are traditional equity sales. But my point in putting this slide out, is for you to look at January 2014 and visually draw a line up. That's when the recovery stopped because we didn't have any more distressed property and the new market began. So we're no longer in a recovery. Since 2014, we have been in the market, right? So I think that's important. So the market is shifting. Oh, here's that. Your competition. There you go. This is sales going back to 2015. Again, I want you to visually look at 2009 to the present. Where is the trend when you have had record low, historic low mortgage rates, you have had unbelievable job creation, tight labor market, where a household formation, right? Millennials finally leaving the nest. All of these things that are strong on the demand side, not showing up in terms of transactions. We all know the reasons why, right? It's been lack of listings and it's been affordability. So those two things are really a vice grip on the California housing market. And I do want to say, we have Scott here from New York, this is just not a California phenomenon anymore. This is happening really on both coasts in these mature markets. You can easily see 2018 was the beginning of the shift because we started to see lower sales than we did the prior year, the same month, right? The month-to-month declines started to accelerate. And the thing that was interesting is that this was across the board. We are seeing declines or slowdowns in the entry level as well as the high end. Now the high end started to the high end is wiggy, right? I mean, the high end is a little bit like the art market. You know, what is a $30 million home worth? Well, it's worth what someone's willing to pay for it, you know? So it's a very thin market, if you will. And we started to see that slow down about 2 years ago. And now it's across the board. And that, I think, is a very interesting thing about the shift. What about prices? Well, when people talk about how strong the market is, I know they're talking about prices, right? And we have recovered, if you will. The Bay Area median in San Francisco peaked out in 2006 at about 950,000, and now it's over 1.5 million. So most of those markets are above the prior peak. I would say about half of Southern California is, the Central Valley is not. So the recovery just measured against that benchmark has been somewhat uneven. And the other thing you note here is in addition to the usual slowdown in appreciation in the fall and winter months, we saw it earlier last year, right? You started to see declines in the median price. The other side of that has been a little bit of an uptick in inventory. It's still tight by historical standards, but compared to where we've been with inventory, there's more on the market. And it may not all be quality stuff, but there's more for people to look at, and it's put a little bit more power in the negotiation on the buyer side, right, as opposed to the seller side. And it means you have to up your game on the seller side, right? You have to spend a lot more time trying to get them to understand the market and be realistic about pricing. And you've got to have a Pinterest-ready home. We just did a survey on staging, and the majority of agents said, I stage every home, or I stage the really difficult ones. And I'm sure 30 years ago that wasn't the case. But with social media now, everybody wants a Pinterest-ready home, right?
Right.
I would not buy this dog. It doesn't look like, my face page on Instagram, right? That's what I want. And you have people buying later. You have couples where both couples have professional careers. They really don't want to redo bathrooms, right? So that's kind of changed it as well. So we started to see the shift in the market actually in January of 2018, when the year-over-year tightening in the number of listings started to slow. It was less listings, but not as less as it was the previous months, right? The change was smaller. And then when we got into March and April of last year, we started to see more listings than we had a year ago. So I think this is the one variable that you need to watch. When people ask me, Leslie, there's so many things to keep track of. What is the one thing I need to watch to understand where the market is going? And I always say inventory, because that will tell you everything you need to know about where the market's going to be in the next 3 to 6 months. And across the board, right? Everybody says their market is unique. Wouldn't you think that your market is unique? It is. I agree. It's absolutely unique. But the entire state is experiencing more inventory and fewer sales. Right? It's a broad-based phenomena, and almost 4 out of every 10 listings that sell have had price reductions, at least one, before they sell. So that's important for sellers to understand. If they start too high, they're going to be following the market down, and that's never, at least usually not a good thing.
Right.
So I have found over the years that the most popular part of my remarks is sharing local data with you. And so I am going to quickly go through the major market areas in Beverly Hills. You all know more about these markets than I do, because you know every street, every neighborhood, every school, and I don't. But I will kind of share this with you, and you can see what's interesting when you look at local data is you do see the broader trends, but there's some big differences city to city, you know, and that's, I think, where your value comes in. So January, February of this year, we're gonna actually be putting our March data out next week, so I'm sorry I don't have that for you yet, we're still crunching it. But we're down about 12.5% compared to last year, so that's for the county as a whole, and the countywide medians at 541, and again, we're seeing these low single digits rates of appreciation, with about 5 months of supply of homes overall in the county, and it takes about a month to sell, and you can see how much that has come up over the last 6 months or so. So let's look at the data for Beverly Hills. So 15 units closed escrow in February. That's a pretty small market, right? You know that. Down about 21% year to date. And we've had about 4 months of a declining market on a year-over-year basis. So we're big on the year-over-year comparisons, because then you don't have to worry about seasonal adjustment. The median price was $5.4 million. Oh my God. When did that happen? Look at that. And we've had some good appreciation the last month or two, but again, when you only have 15 transactions, it can get impacted. Even whether you do an average or a median, you're gonna really need to drill down into individual houses, right, when you talk to your buyers. Supply is up pretty sharply from the last 6 months or so. Active listings a year ago were 180, this year they're 249. Wow. That's pretty big. So that's a pretty big. Yeah. How about Santa Monica? This is Sandra's market, so I know she's gonna have some comments here. 12 units closed escrow, down 10% year to date.
Just 12.
3 months of year-over-year drops below where they were a year ago. Median price 2.5. Boy, compared to Beverly Hills, that seems so affordable. That's the wrong word, right? Not in the stratosphere. I don't know.
The price per square foot's close though.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
You know, it's important to do that comparison. I didn't bring those slides with me, but the price per square foot will tell you if the change in the price side is really due to selling more smaller homes, right? Because you'll have a much smaller change in the price per square foot than you will in the median. But from 65 to 72 on a year-over-year basis, it's taking longer to sell. Who knew Culver City was gonna be the hot spot forever, right? Yeah, you knew that, right? I mean, I know this isn't new information, but it always kind of surprises me. 12 units closed, they're up almost 40% year to date.
Yep.
Again, these are small numbers, so don't get too excited, but it is kind of exciting to see that. Median price 1.325.
Wow. Cool.
It's so affordable.
$100,000 square foot.
865.
865.
No sale.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Really good.
And taking 58 days. So I've heard stories from a couple of my friends who are agents that they list on Saturday, and on Sunday the seller's calling them going, where are the multiple offers?
Right, exactly.
Right, so this again is a big educational opportunity for everybody to talk to sellers about what a normal market looks like compared to what we've had the last couple of years. City of Los Angeles. Units down 16% January, February compared to last year, and it's had kind of a much longer run of declines, about 9 months there. Median price, much more affordable, $971. So again, this is what's weird about this shift. You know, the entry level isn't it weird to call 971 the entry level? Yeah. There's that, and it's taking a little bit longer to sell, which had an increase in inventory. So again, these are the kind of slides that, as an educator, which is what you are, right? You are an educator. You educate your clients about what's going on. You can, don't have it be your opinion, have it be, all right, I'm not gonna talk about this because we're gonna have a whole thing, and it doesn't really say all that much, but I'm calling this market from great to good, right? That's my takeaway. So the forecast here is, we had a drop of around 5% last year in overall transactions statewide. Will be about 7% dropping this year. Prices will be about flat this year, and housing affordability will deteriorate a little bit more. And on average, rates for the year will be 4.6. It might even be lower than that, right? We're at 4% now, so that is up for change. We'll see what the second quarter brings. So here's my advice for you as an agent. I hope that when I retire that I'm able to have a mandatory Leslie class for every realtor on active listening. Because I think it is the most important thing you can do is to learn to really listen and not wait to talk. And when you practice that, you find that it absolutely liberates your mind to really hear the person. Because this is the biggest complaint people have about anybody, including their agent. I didn't hear from them often enough. They didn't understand what I wanted. The communication wasn't optimal. So learn how to listen, talk to them about the shift in the market and show them the data. Make sure the seller gets pricing and gets who their competition is. Millennials, first-time buyers are actually increasing as a share of the market, and the millennials like a lot of information. So curate it, but provide it. Always know the inventory and become a better person. Up your game. So now I would like to invite my friend Sandra Miller up on stage, and we're gonna have a little bit of a conversation about the market, kind of based on the foundation for the shift that we've just been through. And I don't know if we can take even some, this is a kind of a small group. Yeah, we are. A small group, so we could even answer questions. All right.
Ready? I wasn't paying attention.
Hold it till it goes green.
Thank you.
Do you push anything?
Push it and hold it till it goes green.
So talented. Here. Good start.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'll try not to bore you. So, what's really happening out there? For everybody who sells on the west side, you'll have noticed about a year ago that a lot of the savvier developers started pulling back, really rushing to finish their projects or trying to sell them while they're under construction. A lot of things have gone into play with that. I can tell you we're not getting builder multiple offers on anything that is not multifamily at this point. Anybody disagree with me? Anybody seeing multiple offers on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the time where we are.
In Pali, yes, all the time.
All the time.
On tear downs, multiples constantly. We've got all the developers out there.
We have them all right now, today. My guy, I'm waiting to go do one, and then I go back,
We're
yeah.
not seeing that in the Santa Monica, West LA area because it's not making financial sense to the developer. And here's the math. So, as of January of last year, in 2018 or March, I think it was, most of the cities, Santa Monica, West LA, City of Los Angeles, can only build 45% of the lot. And so that's affected the value of the tear down. And so the sellers and the developers have a wide delta that they're having to meet. So unless you underprice it, or you can adjust the seller's pricing strategy to go really low to get the multiple offers, the developers are afraid. And what that means is they don't know where the market's gonna be in 3 years when they have that built, because that's how long it's taken. It's 18 months at the minimum to 3 years to get something built, depending on how big it is and how pretty. So that's the one thing I've noticed that's really different over the last 5-6 months. The developers are really delving into the numbers a lot deeper than they used to. It used to just be they were in line and they would buy it at whatever price, but that's a harder thing to hit right now. The bright spot I think that we're seeing in this normal market is that the people who lost bid after bid after bid, and they actually get angry at their agents for losing so many offers. Even though it was their fault because they wouldn't go high enough or they didn't have cash or whatever it might be. So those people now have an opportunity in this more normal market to upgrade their home. So they're not stuck. They can find something, people aren't making them do crazy non-contingent offers and things like that. So that is a bright spot. It allows us as realtors to really provide the right service rather than just hurrying up and trying to get it done. Because that's what we had to do for, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years, it was insane. We're also seeing a lot of expiring listings, and listings that were on last year coming back on at the same price that they didn't sell at last year. Is everybody seeing that in their areas?
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been on listing appointment after listing appointment after listing appointment, telling sellers what they don't wanna hear. You know, I'm sorry, it didn't sell last year at this price, I highly doubt it's gonna sell this year at this price, no matter how good your pictures are. It's just not gonna happen. So having to have the office owners or managers, and even as agents, you really need to brush up on that, reality check, gut check with the seller. Don't take a listing if it's overpriced, you're just gonna spend money on it. And you're not gonna have any outcome. If they've already gone through 1 or 2 agents, maybe you wanna be the fourth, because by then they're pretty realistic, maybe. Did you know that millennials are using agents more than their parents do?
No.
They really value having someone counsel them and provide them with the right data. I thought that was interesting. So they're referring more people, or they're asking for more referrals, they're data junkies. They've grown up with the internet. So if you wanna capture that segment of the market, learn the data and provide it to them. So that's kind of what the market's doing. Does anybody have any questions that they wanna pitch? Yes.
So, maybe it's directed more towards Leslie, but why do you think the entry level is kind of stagnant right now? I mean, usually all the other signs are pointing that should be a robust market, so why is that kind of looking at it?
It's really affordability, and the prices are just too high. So we find that the millennials who are able to buy either are in the tech industry or, one of those situations, or they have boomer parents who have equity, who can help. But one of the things I'm gonna talk about in my next segment is the migration out of California that we're seeing. And even though I'm sure many of you have clients that are bemoaning the progressive tax structure in California and they're just getting hit, they aren't leaving. Millionaires can afford to live here. We are losing young people and we are losing the working class because they can't afford to get in. So that's what I would say. Sandra, what do you think?
Yeah, I also think there was a large pullback November, December, January, with the rate increase, and just general market jitters. So it's that everybody's afraid. The developers are afraid, the first-time home buyers are afraid, the current home sellers are afraid, which is I think why you see more inventory coming on right now. They just need to be calmed down and educated that we're in a normal market. And a normal market, this is where we're at today. It will take something, Leslie will go into this at the end, but it'll take something impactful, like the bank crisis that we had, to really bottom out our market. So, but they don't realize that. They think in their mind that we're gonna overnight lose 40% of value. And so they're hesitant to make the offers. And they're a little commitment shy, but that's another story.
Anybody else? Yeah, I was gonna ask you what impact you thought the drop in rates had had, and
we're really going back after all of the buyers, the first time, or the entry-level buyers and the step-up buyers who just had offer fatigue last year. And because the rates dropped, we're going, look, you have a window of opportunity here, let's go take advantage of it. And I think if everybody just has that conversation with everyone they come into contact with, it will help.
So would you say it's more like a self-fulfilling prophecy, that they're kind of just like feeding into this engine of like, it's gonna be bad, when in reality, they're still
Absolutely.
paying $5-6 grand a month in rent, like.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the rents are gonna come down, we need far more housing units before that's gonna happen, and that might not ever happen, so, yeah, you just have to give them the data, let them know it's the safe choice, it's clearly the only way to build wealth in this state, right? It's a guaranteed wealth builder if you invest in real estate, so.
You know, and I think we also find that the level of financial literacy is just abysmally low. So providing them information about resources for down payments and that kind of stuff is really helpful because they think it's more impossible than it is or needs to be.
Well, and I bet if you ask, 20 first-time home buyers what the down payment requirements are, they're all gonna tell you 20%. In reality, we can get 5% and 10% down for the right properties and the right people.
So in August last year, Powell said he was going to do 2 increases in the fall. He did 2, and then he was going to do 3 this year. That's now down to 0 this year,
Correct.
and one next year. So Stephen Moore, who Trump is pushing for the Fed, has been asking and calling for very vocally a 50 basis point cut, giving up half of the 100 basis points increase last year. And Larry Kudlow, who's the economic advisor, is doing the same thing.
I will repeat his question.
So-
when he
so-
says,
so-
maybe you can make it a little shorter.
So the question is, do you think there's going to be a 50 basis point cut between now and the next election?
He's asking us about Fed policy and the fact that Stephen Moore, who is being pushed by Trump to be on the Fed, has said he wants to cut the funds rate by 50 basis points and whether we think that will happen. I doubt it. I mean, one governor cannot make a policy like that. I think Powell is pretty solid guy, and that just seems a little reckless to me. But I will never say never, but I have no idea. Yes.
Leslie, it's Robert.
Hi,
Have you
Robert.
ever done a comparison to lease versus purchase? Because I'm seeing a lot of astronomically high leases going on, and I have more leases than I do sale inventory. And I see there's a change in the people that are leasing because maybe they don't have the cash to put in their down payment, but their lifestyle pays them enough to at least lease high and still party.
We haven't done anything on that as far as, that I can remember. And I'm really glad you brought that up because we are doing a lot more quick polls and, different kind of, we have a survey research person who's fabulous. So I appreciate you bringing that up and let's follow up at CAR and see what we can do. Because that's a great idea. That's a good suggestion. We need to be watching that.
So Leslie, we have about 10 minutes left.
Oh, okay, sorry. I have a few more slides.
So
Should
yeah,
I do that?
and I wanna talk about the disruptors.
Okay, okay. Hold on.
And then we'll try and grab a couple questions and I'll walk around.
Oh, wait, I have
If there's time.
You need a microphone.
That's okay, Ryan, I got this one. Okay, so I want to talk about, we talked about what's really happening. So there's disruption and there are disruptors. The Webster definition of disruptor, something that interrupts an event, activity, or process by causing a disturbance or a problem. And Sandra's going to talk to that.
So I just wanted to share with you something that I heard at an SPF, strategic planning meeting earlier this year. And it was Steve Murray actually did the talk, but I'm going to summarize it for you. So think about the disruptors historically, okay? Not all that far back, but so I'm just going to run through this real quick. So IBM had 70% of every computer in the world at one point. GM had 52% of the auto market at one point. Sears was the largest retailer. Cable ruined network television. The 3 major networks lost 70% of their viewership when cable came out. There are 3 words he would use. They were dismissive of competition and changes in their environment. They were ignorant about it, and they got distracted. Now cable is losing viewers fast and furiously to streaming. Everybody's cutting out the box. Do you know what the chairman of Sears said about Walmart? He said, in a meeting that was recorded, People who shop at Walmart are not our clients. Okay, so where's Sears today? Just saying. Merrill Lynch, everybody remembers Merrill Lynch, yeah? They said, and I think it was the early 80s, or no, late 80s, they said they were going to buy up all the brokerages. And if we as broker owners didn't sell to them, they'd put us out of business. They got out in 89, so this was the early 80s. They got out in 1989 and they lost $1.5 billion. So the moral of those examples are the people who are trying to change the business today, they're just trying to innovate. They're trying to come up with something that makes it a little bit easier on them, and I'm gonna let Leslie go into that. But if you stop and think about it, technology is supposed to help productivity. While the per agent productivity hasn't improved, it's declined, it takes them less to do the same business. The agents who have embraced technology to improve their time management and productivity are making more money today. Billions of dollars are being pumped into the industry because it's a $70 billion industry. So it's not really a disruptor. It's going to change. Are you going to, go with it kicking and screaming, or are you going to be out of the business? That's really what you have to decide.
No, I think the other thing in terms of disruption, I mean, I go all over the state and I can't go anywhere without having a very intense conversation about Compass, right? And how they've just made a mark for themselves with a very big bankroll. I don't consider them a disruptor. I mean, they've been disruptive, but their model is familiar, right? What's different are the iBuyers, and again, I know we're running out of time and all these slides will be made available to you, but I think the important point about the disruption that Sandra was talking about is these are individuals that see a problem that needs to be solved, right? When Rich Barton started Zillow, it was because he had been through a real estate transaction that sucked. And he said, this has got to be fixed, like there's gotta be an opportunity there. So you look at these iBuyers and the underlying assumption is the real estate transaction is broken. And as an industry, we do not spend enough time thinking about that, talking about that, trying to make it better, trying to make it faster, trying to understand the pain points of the consumer. I mean, how much would you be willing to pay to have not just a Zestimate, but an offer, right? That's a Zestimate 2.0, right? I have an offer, and it's gonna, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get the money in 3 days, and I don't have to have people walking through my house. The we'll buy your house for cash was typically a distress situation. This isn't. This is a convenient situation. And for this to become ubiquitous, the prices have to go down, absolutely. But they will, mark my words, they will come down and it will look very, very different. And we've had projections by, Rob Hahn and Brad Inman, but when you look at speed, convenience, and certainty, those are not any adjectives that you would use to describe the transaction today. And that's pretty pathetic, right? That we've had all of this technical innovation, and yet the transaction is still really painful for people. 3 out of 10 said there were challenges in the closing. Younger people feel it more. And then these are just some survey results. And again, we'll make these slides available to you, but I'm just trying to make the argument that this transaction for both buyers and sellers needs to be made better, right? And a lot of the innovators and disruptors are trying to solve that. We also just recently did a survey of realtors asking you if you had kind of a legal issue with the transaction. So 7% pre and 4% post. And I just was amazed at the results of this survey, because I don't think everyone really appreciates what you do, what the minefields are and how many times you've got to deal with lawyers and all this kind of stuff. It's pretty incredible. So we wanted to close with just a few things on policy. How much time do we really have? Do we have 10 minutes or not? Somebody?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, I'll just say, here, I'm just gonna go through this so fast. You're gonna just love me. Okay. Housing affordability has been cut by 50% since 2012. We have the second lowest homeownership rate in the country. We have the largest number of homeless in the country. It's no longer a social welfare problem. It is also a housing affordability problem. By 2025, we will be a majority renter state. And in fact, there are many cities that you would consider affordable that are already majority renter. So it is, affordability is relative. Here's what is happening. People are considering moving out of California. When we do our annual market survey asking you about your last closed transaction, in 2013, 19% of you said my seller moved out of state. Last year, 29% said my seller moved out of state. They are moving to Utah, bigger house, smaller mortgage. And they're moving to a lot of other states. This is domestic net migration. It's been negative since 2010. Here is SoCal. Where do the people in coastal Southern California move? This is data from the American Community Survey. The two biggest recipients of people leaving the coast in Southern California are Riverside and San Bernardino. We know that, right? That's our affordable relief area. Then we asked, where do the people in Riverside and San Bernardino go? Because you know what? Those prices are up, and those people are being priced out of their own market, and they're going to Texas and Arizona. So that's the thing that's happening. The migration story, at least in California, is really a housing story. We have two CAR-sponsored bills. One is a remix of the Prop 5 that you're all familiar with. Another is the Wiener Senate Bill 50 that would encourage higher density development along transportation corridors. We also are supporting a number of bills dealing with accessory dwelling units. We don't have time to get into that. We have a great Sacramento staff that can give you all the info, but we're really trying to do our best. Rent control, we defeated Prop 10. You know what? It only takes 41 votes in Sacramento to do the same thing, right? So that is a little bit scary. When we survey California voters, only 13% thought that not enough supply was the problem, right? Only 13%. So, and a lot of our own members don't really support that position, right? They're not on the thing. And then we've got split roll. So I wanted to show you where split roll is coming from. This is data for LA County, and you can see in 1975, right, before Prop 13, revenue from residential was 44.4 million, commercial industrial was 38.8. Look at 2015. 894 for residential, 370 for commercial, because there's a lot of loopholes that are being leveraged on the commercial side. So I'm not, we will be fighting this, but I want you to understand where it's coming from. Sandra, you have some really good things to share.
I'm gonna close on this piece of our policy challenges. So we have a new political reality, everybody's aware of that. We had a blue wave, every constitutional office is held by a Democrat. Over half the Republican seats were lost. Fact of the matter is, the reality is there. One example, rent control, tremendous victory on Prop 10. On the legislation side, as Leslie just said, it's only gonna take 41 votes to change it, and that's probably going to happen. The big thing the message I want you to all understand and take back to your offices and talk to everyone about it is that we're gonna have, as a realtor party, we're gonna have to be pragmatic. We may have to give up some of our long-term ideas for some period of time. We all have to start at the city council level. We need to mobilize. We need to be aggressive. We need to stand for something. We need to walk the talk. Okay, it's not so easy to oppose someone. You make them angry. We know that. But even when it's difficult, you need to take the position. We are going to have to be even more aggressive. Policy needs more focus, or we will be running the risk of irrelevancy. And we're going to have more homeless. We're going to be overrun with the homeless. Realtors are about their community. When everything is said and done, that integrity and credibility will help us hardest environment. So that's the reality. We have to get mobile and get local and get to the city council level. We have to fight NIMBYism. And if you believe in keeping your neighborhoods the same, you need to really read up on the homeless crisis, because all these homeless tent cities that are sprouting up all over our city is a result of NIMBYism. We're not building enough homes. We can't house everyone. Anyway, so that is something that I want you to focus on. I think you'll hear so much more about that after Sacramento. And with that, we're gonna turn it back over to Ryan.
All right.